everyone. Thanks for coming out. You are surrounded by a show called American Dreams. The idea for this originally came from WVIA. Mindy Cronk, who's one of their producers, called last summer and said that VIA was applying for a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The grant would go towards programming about the arts and civic engagement. She asked if the exchange would be interested. Yes, of course. And the first thing that I thought of was a show where we ask artists to think about what the American ideas are. What are the American ideals? What are the things that we all share, or don't, or could, or should? Later in the summer, Mindy and Chris Norton from VIA came down. We sat next door at Brewski's and had lunch talking about what this would all be. And I was going off about my ideas about getting artists to think about these ideas. And Chris sort of absentmindedly said, so what you're talking about is the American dream. I said, yes, exactly, but make it plural. There's not just one American dream. We each have our ideas about what America is. So American Dreams became the name of this show and the overarching name for the programming that WVIA has done. If you go to the VIA website and look for Keystone Edition Arts, starting today, you can watch the episode that was taped last week at Misericordia University, a panel up on stage with Erica Funke talking about what the arts and civic engagement means. And there were some people in the audience who also have done some really interesting things. Up in Honesdale, the arts group there got students from 3 of the local school districts to do a version of the dinner party, the art piece that Judy Chicago had started decades ago. They asked the students to think of some woman they would like to sit and have a meal with, and then make a place setting that would go along with that. And they had, I think it was 214 kids involved, just terrific work. This show has worked by 40 artists from 7 central Pennsylvania counties, plus a friend of mine from Virginia. 8 of the artists are showing here for the first time, which is exciting. Our community keeps growing. Lots of ideas here. Some of them are really the American dream, some are more of the American nightmare. Have a look around, and on our website too, you can see on the gallery page, on the 2025 exhibits, we have pictures of all of these, photos of all of these on the website, so you can get some idea of what artists have done thinking about what is America. I grew up here, my parents grew up here, my grandparents came from both America and elsewhere. I have roots in French Canada, in Austria, in Russia. People came to America because it was a place that they wanted to be, a place that they thought they could make better lives. That, I think, is fundamental to what America has meant. It's a place that people come to so that they and their children and their children's children can have better lives. I traveled around. After college, I spent a couple of years wandering around the country. In fact, I told a story about that. Our first storytelling night here, I told a story about my trip across the country that did not end well in 1987. But I've done traveling since, and one of the things that I find really inspiring and makes me optimistic about America is in all these little towns across the Midwest that I've visited recently, there's terrific Mexican food. This is a very recent phenomenon. The immigrants have come here very recently in the last few years, opened restaurants. The food is terrific. The service is wonderful. The people in back may or may not speak English, it doesn't matter. Food is something that we can all share, and the level of eating in all of these little towns is a hell of a lot better now than it was just a few years ago. People want to come here and make lives as Americans. That, to me, is a cause for optimism. Elaine Walz is the first of our guests tonight, also to speak about what America means to her.
Welcome. I'm Elaine Walz. I reside in Shamokin Dam with my husband and 3 lovely beagles who are at home right now. When Oren first told me about this exhibit and the theme, I was a little concerned because my feelings were so dark. I had not ever anticipated being in this country and feeling this way. My history is that I spent 37 years as an elementary school counselor. And during that time, I really recognized how important and difficult it was to have communication. And we certainly are finding it nowadays a little more difficult. As I sat down to do a painting about the American dreams, I found myself wondering how I could put my feelings down on paper when I was feeling such extreme disappointment and not very much hope about the future. And I titled my drawing, "The Winds of Change Are About to Begin." And through that you can understand that I did feel some hope coming up. And I found that I could relieve my depression a little bit by talking to people and sharing it. And as I felt more people were coming out of the woodwork and trying to stand up for what is right, I felt empowered by this. And I vow that as hard as it may be, as difficult as even standing up in front of you and bearing this, I was going to keep on trying. Now, I did find that music really helps, soothe the soul. And I found this song that was written a long time ago that I feel if you've ever been through a storm and you're wondering how you're going to cope with that, this song really helps you understand. It's called "You'll Never Walk Alone." When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. And may I hope for you that all your dreams are happy. And may God bless the United States of America.
Thank you very much, Elaine.
Sure.
And Elaine's other half is also here. Bob Walz has poetry that he will share with us.
I won the race, so he's going to go first.
Yeah, I just have a couple poems to read. The first one is by me. And the architecture in the poem is not classic Americana, for sure. I tried to revise it to make it a little more American-like, but that failed. So, I'm just going to read it as it was. And I think the theme is poignant. And I won't say any more than I dedicate it to my wife. And here goes. It's called Bob's Sonnet. I'm Bob Walz. When the castle crumbles and the kingdom succumbs to the assaults of time as time runs down, and all roads lead to no city or town, but only desire's ruins where no heart can dwell, and great hopes like pillars tumble to a heap where once was a home, and war usurps peace in this land so troubled, no logic's power on an emperor's throne can command it with noble sovereignty. Then I seek sanctuary from the dread, invading fears of my mortality, to an Eden safe from the threats of time. For in your arms lay endless fields and sky, where our love grows ever greener and can never die. That's a poem song. The second poem is not by me, and it's not even American, by an Irishman, W.B. Yeats, and it's not of this time, but some of the lines and the theme in it are still, I think, pertinent to this time in the U.S. It's called The Second Coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyra, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming, hardly are those words out, when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. A waste of desert sand, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it wind shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches toward Bethlehem to be born. And that's it, folks. Thank you.
Does anyone who had not signed up have anything that they would like to say, either from here or there? It's entirely up to you if you'd like to share here this evening. I'll say a few more words, and maybe that'll inspire you. So, in addition to great Mexican restaurants out across the Midwest, another thing that I have found, you don't have to go very far from here before the county courthouses get really grand. In a lot of these little towns in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, back in the late 19th, early 20th centuries, we really cared. Buildings in general were built a lot better than what they are today. But the county courthouse that sat right at the center of town, that was the symbol of America. That was government. And they put time and treasure and talent into these buildings. When you walk in to get a dog license, you walk into a building that's marble and walnut and gold leaf and murals. They're really grand. The people who work in these buildings understand what special places they are. They are uplifted when they go off to work in their office every day. They understand how important it is when a citizen comes in to walk into one of these buildings. In Mahoning County, Ohio, Youngstown, the Mahoning County Courthouse on the outside, big, gray, severe, classical building. And then you go in, and it is white marble, a 4-story atrium with a glass skylight, murals. There's words that run around, inspiring words. I was there for the first time on a Tuesday afternoon. My friend and I had come into Youngstown to photograph something entirely different. But I had walked around the corner, saw the courthouse, walked in, and was completely astonished. I ran back out and grabbed my friend. You have to see this. We were there a half hour before they closed for the afternoon, so we had a half hour to run through the building. There were literally people sticking their heads out of their office and saying, hey, come look at this. On the 4th floor, the law library for the county. I can't remember if it's the county that actually runs it or if it's a group of lawyers who effectively rent space. But they have this grand, wonderful room, and one of the women working there told me that when they had done a restoration of the courthouse in relatively recent years, it had had a drop ceiling and basically astroturf on the floor. They came in to do the restoration and they started peeling back the astroturf, and it's a tile mosaic covering half an acre of floor space. It's the grandest building. One of the bailiffs said, hey, you gotta come here and look at the courtroom. Behind the bench, a huge mural of justice. And bailiff said, look at this doorknob. And these they're vast, they're huge bronze cast doorknobs, and they have MC cast in them from Mahoning County. He said, we hear that Mercer County, Pennsylvania has the same doorknobs. Fast forward a few years later, and my friend and I, same friend, were driving west on Route 80, and we hit the Mercer County line on Route 80, almost to Ohio. I said, George, we gotta stop. We pull off the highway. Mercer is the county seat of Mercer County, just a couple miles off Route 80. There's this beautiful brick courthouse sits in the middle of town. We go in, and it's the same thing, walnut and stone and murals and big bronze doorknobs. They are not, in fact, the same. They do have MC cast into it, but they're not the same. It's a different design. We cared, and in so many communities across America, these courthouses are still the symbol of what's right about our government. Right around the corner from these courthouses, you will often find the public library. And in a lot of these towns across the Midwest, the libraries are open 7 days a week. And they're well loved and well used. In Rochelle, Illinois, we were out there in 2016. The Rochelle Library, the original library, or at least the older wing, was built during the Depression. The WPA had a hand in it, and it's this Egyptian sort of relatively severe building. I guess around the turn of this century, they built an addition, which is many times larger. And you go in between the two, the old and the new, and there's a glass atrium. And on the outside of the new building, in the spandrels between the windows of the floors, they have carved in the names of some of the important authors, like Shakespeare and Darwin, who's an important scientist, and Seuss. Dr. Seuss is on the front of this building. That also, to me, is something fundamentally American. Dr. Seuss is one of the great Americans, and in a library in this little town in the Midwest, they are elevating him. We can elevate greatness even as we don't take ourselves entirely seriously. And that is another thing that Americans, I think, are pretty good at. We're capable of laughing at ourselves as well as feeling that, hey, we're pretty hot stuff. So when you travel across the country, you have the chance to go out into this country and go into these little towns, see what you can find. Whether it's the local restaurant that's run by immigrants, whether it's the library, the courthouse, whatever it is, there are great things that symbolize what I believe makes this country as great as it has been. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to that?
I just want to say that I do therapy work with my beagles, and we go to the prisons in the area, and I do find that the settings are just amazing. Lewisburg, the big house, marble. I mean, it's just, you walk in there and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's a prison.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are American ideas, and in some places, like that prison, like these county courthouses, we have turned those into something fixed, immovable, and hopefully permanent, so that we will always have an idea of what these ideas are. So thank you all for being here tonight, and go out and enjoy America.
Thank you.